What if the life you're living isn't yours anymore? Because you've slowly given pieces of yourself away. In this video, we're diving into 7 essential things you should never sacrifice for anyone, inspired by the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, to live with virtue, and to never compromise our core values. Yet in everyday life, it's easy to trade your identity for approval, your dreams for comfort, or your peace for someone else's chaos. But here's the truth. The things that make you you, your integrity, your boundaries, your passion, your freedom, are not negotiable. In this episode, we'll explore how to protect those inner pillars, how to apply Stoic thinking to real-life relationships, and how to stand firm in a world that constantly asks you to bend. Whether you're feeling pulled in too many directions or just need a reminder of what truly matters, this video will help you reconnect with your power and prioritize what counts. Let's get into it, because peace of mind, purpose, and self-respect are worth more than any approval you'll ever chase. Number 1, your self-respect. At the heart of who you are lies your self-respect. It's not just a trait, it's your compass. The moment you begin trading it for comfort, acceptance, or harmony, you're not keeping the peace. You're losing your voice. The world doesn't take long to notice when your boundaries fade. People test them, some press harder. What once felt unshakable slowly dissolves until you're no longer sure where you end and others begin. Disrespect rarely kicks down the door. It slips in quietly. You begin accepting behavior you once swore you wouldn't. Not all at once, but gradually. And that's the trap. Self-respect doesn't collapse in a single moment. It erodes silently until you look around and realize you've made yourself small for too long. There was a period when I worked in a job that looked perfect on paper. Great pay, prestige, the kind of role people told me I was lucky to have. But the environment slowly ate away at me. My manager constantly dismissed my input in meetings, often taking credit for ideas I had shared earlier in private. I was excluded from key conversations, undermined in subtle but consistent ways. When I finally spoke up, I was told I was overreacting and too sensitive, that I should be grateful to even be in the room. At first, I swallowed it. I convinced myself I just needed to work harder, prove myself, keep my head down. But each time I accepted their version of the story, I gave up a little more of myself. Until one day, sitting at my desk long after hours, exhausted and invisible, I realized I had betrayed my own standards in exchange for approval that never came. Walking away was terrifying. It felt like failure. But what I didn't see then was that it was actually the beginning of rebuilding. Reclaiming my self-respect wasn't a moment of defiance. It was a return to clarity. Here's what people don't tell you. Most will accept you as long as you don't challenge their comfort. When you begin honoring yourself, holding firm to your standards, and no longer making yourself smaller to fit someone else's world, you disrupt the script, and some won't like it. Choosing self-respect doesn't mean you're rigid or unkind. It means you no longer betray your values for temporary peace. It's easy to be seen as difficult in a world that glorifies self-abandonment and calls it love. But there's nothing noble about breaking yourself to build someone else up. The moment I began choosing myself, my world realigned. Certain relationships dissolved, and looking back, they needed to. I stopped shrinking. I began moving with intention. I realized that self-respect isn't loud or dramatic. It's steady, quiet, and powerful. It's choosing, day after day, to not abandon yourself, no matter how tempting it might be. Understand this clearly. Empathy does not require self-erasure. Understanding someone's pain doesn't mean becoming their emotional cushion. You can be compassionate without tolerating behavior that leaves you feeling hollow. That's why philosophies like Stoicism emphasize personal discipline and internal strength. When you place your identity in someone else's hands, you lose the ability to shape your life with integrity. The people who truly care for you will respect the limits you set. The ones who don't, their reaction is the answer you were looking for all along. Because when self-respect goes, it takes everything with it. Your confidence, your peace, your direction, and no amount of external validation can ever replace that. And here's something most people miss. Protecting your self-respect doesn't just change your life. It teaches others how to treat you and how to treat themselves. You create a ripple. You show what it looks like to walk with your head high, even if you walk alone for a while. And that ripple, it can change everything. Number 2, your dreams. Imagine walking through a crowded street where everyone is carrying invisible cages. Each cage holds a dream, small, quiet, and flickering like a candle. Most people keep the door shut, afraid to let it out. But one person stops, opens the cage, and sets their dream free. Everyone stares, but deep down, they wish they had the courage to do the same. Your dreams aren't decorations. They're the raw blueprint of who you are becoming. They are not optional luxuries reserved for spare time or early mornings when everything else is handled. They're the fire in your chest that makes the mundane worthwhile. Still, it's unsettling how quickly the world will ask you to put that fire out. People mean well when they say be practical, or that's a cool idea, but what's your backup plan? They don't always realize those words can echo in your head longer than intended. It's rarely malicious. It's just that your vision makes them uncomfortable. And instead of facing their own neglected dreams, they suggest you tame yours. But here's the thing. Dreams were never meant to be safe or convenient. They were meant to stretch you, to pull you out of the expected and into something bold, even reckless. They aren't supposed to fit into neat timelines or predictable routes. If they did, they wouldn't be dreams. They'd be chores. Years ago, I had a deep urge to pursue photography, not just as a hobby, but as a real path. I'd spend hours walking through cities, capturing quiet moments, chasing light across rooftops. But when I told people I was thinking of leaving my stable job to do it full-time, their expression said everything. That's risky, they warned. Isn't that a little unrealistic? I listened. I stayed put. And for a while I convinced myself it was the responsible thing to do. But the longer I stayed away from that dream, the heavier I felt. Not sad, just misaligned, like I was wearing someone else's life. Eventually, I realized the cost of ignoring it was higher than the fear of trying. So I started again, slowly, one photo at a time. I'm not famous, I haven't made a fortune, but I've built a life that feels like mine, and that's everything. Too often, we treat dreams like distractions instead of directions. But pushing them aside doesn't make you more stable. It just makes you quietly resentful. If you bury your passion deep enough, it starts to rot into regret. And regret doesn't just stay in one part of your life, it spills over, tainting how you show up for everything else. There's a narrative that chasing a dream is selfish or naive. But what if the opposite is true? What if the most honest thing you can do is follow the pull of what lights you up? Your courage doesn't just serve you, it reminds others that it's okay to want more. And sometimes wanting more is exactly what this world needs. Think about how many people walk around half awake, reminiscing about what they could have done. They tell stories of youthful ambition, like ghost tales, haunting and unfinished. They didn't stop dreaming because they were weak. They just believed they had no choice. But here's the truth. There's always a choice. It's just not always easy. Dreams don't always require drastic leaps. Sometimes it's about carving out an hour a day. Sometimes it's about saying no to something good so you can pursue something great. If you don't start now, then when? If you keep postponing your dreams until life settles down, you'll discover that life never really does. And here's what they don't teach you. Chasing your dream might not make your life easier, but it will make it real. Every setback becomes part of a story you're proud to tell. Every win feels earned. You start waking up with a sense of direction, not because you know exactly where you're going, but because you finally remember why you're going. So the next time someone raises an eyebrow at your dream, let them. Their doubt isn't your burden to carry. Let them play it safe. You've got a life to build, and it starts with believing that your dream deserves room to grow. Number 3, your time. Imagine time as a currency that disappears the moment you spend it. No savings, no refunds, no earning it back. Every hour you give away is a transaction, and whether you realize it or not, you're either investing in your growth or giving it away for free to people and things that offer no return. We live in a world that demands your attention constantly. Everyone seems to want a piece of your day, An opinion, a favor, a reply, a quick chat. And without boundaries, you find yourself stretched thin, doing a dozen things that barely matter to you, all while your own goals sit waiting on the shelf. I used to be someone who felt guilty saying no. I didn't want to let people down, so I filled my time with meetings I didn't need, favors I didn't owe, and conversations that drained more than they gave. I thought being available made me dependable, but it mostly made me tired. One week, I canceled 2 days of writing, a project I'd been passionate about, to help a neighbor run errands and prep for a community event. I told myself I was being kind, but when the event came and went, I wasn't even invited. That was a turning point. I realized I had put aside something deeply meaningful to me in exchange for temporary validation, and not even sincere appreciation. The truth is, people often don't see the value of your time unless you show them how much it matters. And when you start treating it with respect, some will push back. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your boundaries challenge their convenience. There's a difference between being helpful and being available at the cost of yourself. You can be supportive without sacrificing your priorities. You can care without constantly rescuing. Protecting your time isn't selfish, it's wise. You have dreams that need your attention, passions that require uninterrupted hours, healing that only happens when you step away from the noise. If you're always accessible, when do you make space for the life you truly want? Think about it. When was the last time you had an entire day just for you? Not running errands, not replying to emails, not being on call for everyone else's needs. That silence, that space, it's where clarity lives. And most people are too busy to ever find it. You're not meant to live on everyone else's schedule. You're not a backup plan, a safety net, or a lifeline for other people's chaos. The more you honor your time, the more you teach others to honor it too. Not everyone will like it when you stop saying yes automatically, but those who genuinely value you will understand and even admire the courage it takes to say, I can't right now. When you make time for your own life, for your work, your rest, your joy, you become more present, more powerful, and more fulfilled. You begin to live on purpose instead of in response. And here's the extra truth most ignore. It's not just about avoiding burnout. It's about building a life you don't need to escape from. So before you commit your time to something or someone else, ask yourself, is this request taking me closer to the life I want or quietly pulling me away from it? Number 4, your mental health. Mental health is often treated as a secondary concern, something that gets pushed aside when life gets hectic. We prioritize deadlines, social obligations, and everything else. But at what cost? When we don't tend to our minds, it's like building a house on a shaky foundation. It's only a matter of time before it all crumbles. The reality is this: no amount of success or achievement can compensate for a mind that's fragile or overwhelmed. At the end of the day, your mental well-being is what determines whether or not you can truly enjoy the success you've worked for. Without it, nothing else holds its weight. I remember a time when I ignored my mental health completely. I was juggling a demanding job, family responsibilities, and the expectations of people around me. I thought pushing through the exhaustion and constant pressure made me strong, so I kept going, thinking it would all somehow work out. But what I didn't realize was how much it was chipping away at me, piece by piece. I got so caught up in meeting everyone else's needs that I forgot to listen to my own. I'd agree to things I didn't want to do, take on tasks I didn't have the energy for, and before long, I was emotionally drained and physically burnt out. It felt like I was living in autopilot, just going through the motions without any real purpose or joy. Then one day, a colleague pointed out that I looked like I hadn't slept in days. It was a casual remark, but it hit me hard. In that moment, I realized how far I'd let myself go, how I had been pushing my limits for so long that I hadn't even noticed the toll it was taking. I had to make a change. The truth is, your mental health can't be an afterthought. It doesn't show up only when things hit a crisis point. You don't have to reach your breaking point to acknowledge it. Taking care of your mental health is about making small, consistent efforts every day. Recognizing when you're overwhelmed and having the strength to say, I need a break. Our culture often celebrates the hustle, the grind, and the nonstop work ethic. But there's nothing glamorous about burnout. It's easy to buy into the idea that you should always be pushing harder, doing more, never slowing down. But this mindset doesn't lead to success. It leads to exhaustion, anxiety, and eventually resentment. And yet we feel guilty for taking time off, for saying no to commitments, or for asking for help. But here's the thing. Resting isn't lazy. Rest is necessary for maintaining your mental health. Just like you wouldn't expect to run a marathon without training, you can't expect your mind to keep going non-stop without it breaking down. I've learned that setting boundaries is crucial, not just for my mental health, but for my happiness and well-being. It's not selfish to prioritize your peace. In fact, it's a form of self-respect. When you take care of your mental health, you're investing in your future, making sure that you're able to show up as your best self, not just for others, but for you. So if you're reading this and feeling overwhelmed, ask yourself, when was the last time you put your mental health first? It's not about avoiding hard work. It's about balancing it with the self-care you need to stay resilient. The key takeaway is this. Your mind is the most important asset you have. Protect it. Don't wait until you hit a wall to start taking care of it. Prioritize it now, before everything else begins to fall apart. And in the end, mental health is about more than just surviving. It's about thriving. When you take care of yourself, you make space for everything else to fall into place. Ask yourself this. How long can you keep going without paying attention to your mental well-being? Is it time to make a change? Number 5, your boundaries. You don't need permission to set boundaries in your life. They're not just guidelines, they're declarations of your worth and your time. Boundaries are about protecting what's sacred to you, your mental health, your relationships, and your goals. Yet too often we ignore or downplay them to avoid conflict, fear of judgment, or simply trying to please others. I've been there. For years, I didn't know how to say no. I thought if I just helped everyone, said yes to every favor, and was available at all times, people would see me as a good friend, colleague, or family member. But the truth is, all I was doing was teaching people that my time and energy were expendable. The more I gave, the more others expected, and the more I felt like I was losing myself in the process. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if you don't put others first, you're being selfish. But over time, I realized something incredibly important. Saying yes to others when it means saying no to yourself is not selflessness, it's self-sacrifice. I kept feeling drained, overwhelmed, and frustrated, but still I couldn't bring myself to draw the line. Eventually, though, I hit a point where I was completely worn out. That was my wake-up call. Setting boundaries isn't about being rigid or dismissive. It's about creating a healthy framework where you can give your best without burning out. It's understanding that you're not a bottomless pit of resources. You need rest, time to recharge, and the space to focus on your dreams. When I finally started to set boundaries, saying no to extra projects at work, taking breaks when I needed them, and protecting my personal time, I began to feel more energized, confident, and at peace. The tricky part is that not everyone will understand. Some people will try to guilt trip you, criticize you, or make you feel like you're being unreasonable. But here's the reality. People who truly care about you will respect your boundaries because they understand that a healthy relationship is built on mutual respect, not on you constantly giving to the point of exhaustion. As you start setting boundaries, you'll quickly realize that they free you rather than limit you. Boundaries allow you to focus on what you truly want to invest your energy in. Whether it's a project that excites you, spending time with people who respect you, or simply enjoying moments of peace by yourself. The more you respect your own limits, the better you can show up for the people who truly matter, because you won't be running on empty. There's a deep freedom in saying no without guilt, in prioritizing yourself without fear of rejection. It's okay to step back, take a break, and protect your time. When you do this, you're not just putting up walls between you and others, you're creating space for what really aligns with who you are and what you need. In the end, boundaries aren't about cutting off the world. They're about choosing what and who you allow into your life, knowing that you deserve respect in the time to grow and thrive. So take a moment to reflect on where you need to set those boundaries and remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation for wanting to protect your peace. Number 6, your financial independence. Imagine you wake up one day ready to pursue a passion project or take a leap into a new career, but then you remember something. You're tied down financially. You realize that all the choices you want to make are limited by your financial situation. Maybe it's a dead-end job you feel stuck in, or a relationship where you don't feel free to express yourself because you're financially reliant. That's the reality for many of us. Financial independence isn't just about having a fat bank account. It's about freedom, the ability to make choices that align with your own values and goals, and the peace of mind that you're not at the mercy of others. When I was younger, I didn't pay much attention to my financial independence. I thought that as long as I had enough to get by and some support from family or friends, I didn't need to worry. I lived in a state of complacency. However, as I grew older, I began to feel the weight of not being fully in control of my finances. I found myself second-guessing decisions I should have been making for myself. I realized how much of my life was dictated by circumstances outside of my control. One of the biggest wake-up calls for me came when I was offered an opportunity to move to a new city for a better job, one that aligned with my long-term goals. But I hesitated. I worried about the financial stability I would lose, and I couldn't shake the fear of being on my own without a financial cushion. That's when it really hit me. I had been living a life shaped by my dependency on financial security rather than living a life of choice. I had no real freedom, and it became clear that I had to change that. Financial independence isn't about becoming rich. It's about having the autonomy to make decisions without being dictated by financial limitations. It's about budgeting, planning, and understanding that the choices you make should align with your desires, not just your obligations. Financial independence gives you the ability to walk away from situations that aren't serving you, whether it's a job you hate or a toxic relationship, without fearing that you'll be financially trapped. Many people sacrifice their financial independence without realizing it, especially in relationships. They merge finances with a partner, thinking it's a sign of trust or love. But over time, they realize that it creates an imbalance of power. When you rely too heavily on someone else for your financial well-being, you give them control over more than just money. You give them power over your choices, your freedom, and even your happiness. I remember a time when I was stuck in a career that didn't fulfill me, and I was afraid to leave because of the steady paycheck it provided. The thought of losing that security kept me from pursuing something that actually lit me up. That's what financial independence gives you: the confidence to take risks, to walk away from the things that don't align with your true self, and to move toward what excites you without the fear of losing your stability. Achieving financial independence doesn't happen overnight. It's about learning to live within your means, setting aside savings, and prioritizing investments that will pay off in the long term. It's about making the conscious choice to not fall into debt traps and knowing how to navigate your financial journey with intention. Each small step toward financial independence gives you more power and freedom over your life choices. The real beauty of financial independence is the power it gives you to say no when you need to. You can choose not to tolerate toxic situations or stay in a job that drains you simply because you're not dependent on a paycheck or someone else's financial support. And when you have that freedom, you'll start noticing that the way you live and make decisions becomes more aligned with your true desires and values. Of course, it's not easy to get there. Financial independence requires discipline, patience, and a willingness to make sacrifices now for long-term gain. But trust me, it's worth it. The peace of mind that comes with knowing you are in control of your finances, and thus your life, is one of the most empowering things you can experience. Financial independence isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. It's about creating the life you truly want to live, without being bound by external pressures. So take ownership of your financial journey. Don't wait for the perfect moment, the perfect amount of money, or the perfect conditions. Start small, stay committed, and take charge of your financial freedom. Because once you do, you'll have the freedom to live your life on your terms. Number 7, your passion. Think back to when you were a kid, utterly consumed by something. Maybe it was drawing superheroes, building elaborate Lego cities, or spending hours pretending you were on stage in front of thousands. That feeling of total immersion, that was passion, It's not just child's play. It's the pulse of your inner self, the thing that makes you feel most alive. But life grows up fast, and so do expectations. Suddenly, passion is seen as a luxury, something we grow out of in favor of responsibilities, job titles, and checklists. It's heartbreaking how easily people let go of what once set their soul on fire, dismissing it as impractical or unimportant. Here's the reality. Passion is not a side dish, it's fuel. It's the thing that keeps you from running on empty. When you abandon it, even with good intentions, life slowly loses color. You start showing up to your days like you're clocking into a job you didn't apply for. For years, I poured my heart into photography. Not professionally, just something I loved. Capturing light, framing emotion, freezing time, it grounded me. But when I got pulled into a fast-paced job in tech, the camera slowly found its way to the back of the closet. I told myself I'd get back to it when things slowed down. Spoiler, they never did. Then one weekend, I stumbled on an old folder of photos I'd taken years ago. It was like finding a piece of myself I didn't know I'd lost. That day, I picked up my camera again, not because I had time, but because I couldn't afford not to. Within weeks, I felt more connected, more energized, more me than I had in years. That's the thing. Passion isn't frivolous. It's not just for artists or dreamers, it's vital. It reconnects you with who you are outside of what you do or what people expect of you. Passion has a way of bleeding into every other part of life. It sharpens your focus, improves your mood, and reminds you that there's more to life than survival. We're told to prioritize what pays the bills, what builds a secure future. And yes, we need to be responsible. But passion and responsibility aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, when they coexist, that's when you truly thrive. Letting go of passion slowly dulls you. You begin to forget what lit you up. You start settling, not just in your career, but in your relationships, your routines, even your dreams. It becomes easier to say, I used to love that, instead of, I still do. Some people might mock your passion or say, that's just a hobby. But let's be honest, those are often the same people who haven't felt lit up by anything in years. They gave up on themselves, and they want you to do the same so they feel less alone. You don't need approval to pursue what matters to you. You don't need to monetize it, prove its worth, or explain it to anyone. All you need is the courage to protect it. And sometimes that means choosing quiet hours of fulfillment over noisy validation. One of the most powerful things about passion is that it's contagious. When you're lit up from within, people feel it. You become magnetic. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because joy is irresistible. Your passion might just be the nudge someone else needs to dust off their own. Reconnecting with your passion may require sacrifice, time, energy, even comfort. But what you gain in return is invaluable. Clarity, joy, and a reminder that your life is yours. That no matter how full your schedule gets, you still get to choose what fills your soul. Don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for permission. Whether it's playing piano, coding, gardening, filmmaking, dancing, or designing clothes. Make room for it. Passion is not an accessory to life. It's the heartbeat of a life well lived. So start today. Start messy, start late, start small, just start. Because in a world constantly trying to pull you in 100 directions, passion is your anchor. It's your reminder of who you are and what makes your time here matter. That's it. The things you should never trade, not for love, not for approval, not even for comfort, because these aren't just details of your personality. They're your core. They're what make you feel alive, anchored, and in alignment with the person you were always meant to be. The world will offer you endless reasons to bend, to shrink, to sacrifice parts of yourself just to belong or keep the peace. And at times, it'll feel easier to say yes to others than to say yes to yourself. But here's the truth. The more you compromise the essential parts of who you are, the further you drift from your own life. So take this as a reminder. Your voice, your values, your dreams, your boundaries, your freedom, they matter. They're not luxuries, they're non-negotiables. Start protecting them like your future depends on it, because it does. You don't need to justify living a life that's true to you. You don't need to apologize for choosing peace over pressure or purpose over performance. And if this message found you at the right time, I hope it stays with you. Thank you for being here. If this resonated, give it a like, share it with someone who's on this same journey, and subscribe for more. Until next time, be bold, be kind to yourself, and never hand over the pen when you're the one writing your story. See you soon.